Liberal journalist mocks Clint Eastwood in public. His stunning response leaves everyone silent. Among the crowd stood Clint Eastwood, calm, composed, and quietly observing. Though older, his presence was as commanding as ever. Then, a well-known liberal journalist spotted him. With a smug grin, he raised his microphone. "Clint, aren't you a little too old to still be in the game?" he quipped, loud enough for the whole room to hear. The crowd chuckled. Some nodded in agreement. But Clint, he didn't even blink. He just stared at the journalist, his expression unreadable. The journalist smirked, encouraged by the laughter around him. He adjusted his tie and leaned in. "Come on, Clint. Hollywood's changed. Do you really think people still care about your old-school ways?" A few more chuckles rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, whispering among themselves. The journalist wasn't done. "Times are different now. Maybe it's time for legends like you to step aside and let the new generation take over." His words dripped with arrogance, but Clint didn't flinch. He stood still, his piercing gaze locked on the journalist. The tension in the room thickened. Some in the crowd began shifting uncomfortably, realizing the so-called joke wasn't as light-hearted as it first seemed. A hush fell over the audience. Everyone was waiting for Clint to react, to say something, anything. But he didn't rush. He just let the silence stretch. Then, in his signature slow, gravelly voice, Clint finally spoke. Clint tilted his head slightly, studying the journalist like a seasoned gunslinger sizing up an amateur. Then, with a calm, measured voice, he finally spoke. "You think wisdom fades with age?" he asked, his voice carrying through the room. "Son, I've forgotten more than you've learned." The journalist blinked, caught off guard. He opened his mouth to reply, but Clint wasn't finished. "You talk about change," Clint continued. "But real change doesn't come from mocking those who built the foundation you're standing on. It comes from learning and from respect." The room was now silent, everyone hanging onto his words. "Hollywood didn't change me," Clint said, his eyes locked on the journalist. "I changed Hollywood." A murmur spread through the audience. A few heads nodded. The journalist, suddenly looking much smaller, tried to regain control. "Well, that's just one way to look at it," he muttered, chuckling nervously. Clint smirked. "That's the only way to look at it when you've been in the game longer than some folks have been alive." The journalist's confidence cracked. The crowd sensed it, and in that moment, everyone knew Clint Eastwood had already won. A low murmur spread through the crowd, shifting from amusement to admiration. People exchanged glances, some nodding in silent agreement. A few reporters scribbled furiously, realizing they had just witnessed something bigger than an offhand remark. The journalist swallowed hard, his smirk faltering. He wasn't expecting this. "Well, Clint, I was just joking," he stammered, trying to save face. "Didn't mean to ruffle any feathers." Clint gave a slow nod. "Oh, I know," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But the funny thing about jokes, they usually reveal more about the person telling them." The journalist's face turned red. A chuckle rose from the back of the room. Someone whispered, "He walked right into that one." A well-known director leaned toward a colleague and muttered, "That's why he's a legend." The journalist shifted awkwardly, looking for an exit from the conversation. But there wasn't one. Clint gave a final glance around the room. "Respect isn't given," he said. "It's earned, and some people have a long way to go." The room fell completely silent. The journalist lowered his mic. For the first time that night, he had nothing left to say. The silence in the room was deafening. The journalist, once full of smug confidence, now stood frozen, grasping for words that wouldn't come. He had tried to mock a legend, only to be schooled in front of everyone. Then, the unexpected happened. A slow clap started from the back of the room. Within seconds, it spread. People weren't just impressed, they were inspired. Clint gave a slight nod, then turned to leave, his presence lingering even as he walked away. The journalist stood motionless, realizing the night would be remembered, not for his jokes, but for Clint's legendary response. By morning, the clip had gone viral. Social media exploded with praise. Never challenge a legend. Clint Eastwood just gave a masterclass in respect. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. If you love moments like this, hit that like button and subscribe for more legendary stories.